joining us tonight, an Apprentice addict, the writer and broadcaster Vanessa Feltz, and the man who put the va-va-voom into Renault, an ad industry giant, Keith Courtney. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Manny Sander. Now, at the outset, can I make it clear I'm a world-class presenter? Oh,
yeah.
It's what... Vanessa, what did you make of this one, and sort of Manny specifically?
Well, it was fascinating because Manny seemed to suddenly come in from left of field at the 11th hour and say, hang on a minute, you've got it all wrong, this isn't what I meant, this isn't what I said. I didn't mean a literal concierge, for God's sakes. And where had he been the whole time when they were shooting the film? It was as if he was somewhere in a parallel universe while it was all going very badly wrong, and I didn't understand why he didn't pipe up sooner.
Why didn't you pipe up sooner?
We were doing the billboard. Ansel and I were actually sat at a computer for most of the time. We were sat right at the computer putting the billboard together. So they were off, two parallel teams. They were doing their thing, we were doing our thing. So we were going with an analogy, they were going with a literal translation.
They didn't know what an analogy was.
Fortunately. No.
But to take the point about the idea of the concierge was just plain wrong. It was the card he wanted advertised,
absolutely.
Not the service.
Yeah, sure. And look, I mean, Ansel came back from the meeting and actually mentioned concierge first, but if he hadn't, I probably would have. Because I think it was clear that Daniel did give us that steer. I mean, he really did, so... But
as Nick said, it was about the 14th most important thing, wasn't it? What did you make of it, seeing it, Keith? What did you think was the important thing to hit?
It was actually, I think it's very, very difficult when you got that amount of information to take in and then try and find some context for then feeding it back out again. So it was a really, really... I certainly, for me, looking at the work, I think probably... Personally, I think they chose the wrong... I think certainly Sugar probably chose the wrong campaign.
We'll have a look at both ads again in a second. But firstly, on this thorny issue of whose idea the flipping concierge was, I mean, this might throw a little bit of light on it.
Yeah.
Let's remind ourselves what happened.
Yeah, sure. Go.
Here we go.
So,
how did that go?
Yeah, it was good.
Really nice guys.
But the main thing I think they highlighted, which was the concierge services. Yes. You're saying to the concierge, right, I need a hotel, restaurant, nightclub, whatever you need.
Yeah.
That's yours.
So
it was
on Ansel, really, isn't it?
Yeah, right. And what I just didn't understand was, if that was the issue, well, why was Joe there? I mean, Ansel and me, take us in, and let's get to the bottom of this. But Joe wasn't even part of that. So what was she doing there?
But the actual billboard ad, as I understand it, did actually advertise what Sir Alan wanted. It was the card. It was holding the card out, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think it's very, very difficult when unfortunately for you, sir, you came in way too late to say, hang on, I don't actually really mean putting a concierge in the commercial, So right. it was a real tough one. I mean, always as an advertising guy, you try and think, what would I do if I'd been given all that amount of staff? And like I say, I think you probably hit on the one thing, given that target audience, that had some sort of relevance, versus Paul Daniels.
Yeah.
But I think you're being very generous, actually, because I think they completely failed to take into account your target audience. I mean, who did you think you were aiming the ad at? You were aiming the ad at the kind of person who's already got someone to book their theatre tickets, for God's sake. They can afford a private plane.
Sure,
they've already got someone to organise the card. They've got their own driver. They've got their own chauffeur. They've got a PA on the other side of the Atlantic. They don't care that they can get someone to organise the theatre.
It's an analogy. That's what everyone's
But it's not an interesting analogy to them. You're aiming at the wrong time. Mrs. Whatever on the Clapham omnibus would be thrilled to bits with a concierge, not someone who can afford a private jet.
You versus Vanessa would be about the same as you versus Ruth. It's kind of a rather unequal struggle.
Thank you so much.
Here's the moment the billboard ad was born, this idea, and there's a magic moment at the end of this. I just love the sight of Ansel holding that card up. Let's have another look at it.
As an image, this works for me because what it's saying is this card gives you the capability of hailing a plane just like a taxi. I think that's a very powerful image.
That's magnificent. If anybody could hail a jumbo jet. It's Ansel. You could see him on the M4 by Heathrow, couldn't you? Just waving it, and one of them had stopped.
Completely convincing, really.
Keith, what did you make of those two then?
I thought they were both shit. I mean, I thought kind of one was less shit than the other. Like I say, I think for me, the notion of the concierge, you know, and I take Vanessa's point, you know, about appropriateness, but at least there was some synergy with the kind of people you were kind of talking to there.
To a certain extent, I think you got a bit of a nerve because in 12 hours they put those together. I thought it was remarkable.
I'm not saying that the achievement wasn't kind of admirable because you know we
spent 6 months making a crap advert.
No, we bloody don't. You know, I think it is an achievement to put something together that has that kind of structure in such a short space of time.
So how long would this whole process have taken for real, Keith? What is it? Is it weeks, months, years?
It's kind of usually. I mean, I guess a creative department will get a brief, spend a couple of weeks on it, and then production is generally maybe 12 weeks to get a TV commercial right. You know, I mean, you're right. You know, to put that together in such a short space of time, I think is an achievement for both teams. But it just, to me, I think they just went about it maybe too quickly. Maybe they should have just thought about it a little bit more, thought about the target audience a little bit more, both teams, and just given a little bit more time before they started regurgitating all the 14 or 15 points, whatever they had to.
So Vanessa, what do you think of the advertising industry generally?
Well, my first job ever was on Campaign magazine in the advertising industry, so I hold it very dear, and I think there can be adverts which are kind of devastatingly accurate, incredibly brilliant, and as you know, seared on the consciousness of the nation forever and ever. I don't, however, think either of these will quite make it into that pantheon. But you know, a decent job was done. I thought one of the most flabbergasting moments of the entire episode, though, was when Paul cast his advert before he had the concept, which to me is
that
like
was just great.
buying furniture for a
piece of
house you
TV.
haven't bought yet when you don't know how big the room is. How can you cast an advert when you don't know what's going to be in
But
it?
they've never done
That
it
was
before.
bewildering.
Like asking a load of advertising people to make a television programme in 12 hours.
Well, exactly.
I think they'd make a good fist of it.
You think so?
Yes, I do.
Probably.
Did it float your boat? Could you have, if the worst came to the worst, could you make a career in advertising? Would you fancy?
Well, voiceovers maybe, yeah.
No.
Okay. Very smooth. I'll take you on, definitely. Let's have a look now what the boardroom survivors and Sir Alan had to say about you after you'd gone. This is the most painful bit, by the way, so brace yourself.
Manny, I've been observing for the past few weeks. When I look at his CV, in the end, he's been a consultant. We gave him a chance for the past 5 weeks to prove that he could get down to doing some real business. He starts fighting for his position in the boardroom in a forceful manner.
I've not mentioned concierge at all.
We did put the concierge in.
I didn't.
You did.
I did not prioritise concierge.
Why are you doing that now, mate? Why didn't you do that in this particular task? He didn't convince me, really. And it was too much, too late.
How do you react to what you've heard?
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, well, what is there to say about that? I think what he's looking for is not the sort of person I am. Simple as that.
What about the pitching? You're still bitter that you weren't given the chance to pitch there?
Not bitter, no. I mean, it would be nice to try it.
Do
Yeah.
you think you should have been given the chance to pitch?
Yeah, I think with anything, you've got to put your best people on the job. Especially when you're trying to convince a whole room full of creative people. You're going to.
But Manny's point, he presents to crowds like this. He doesn't present to one bored-looking calendar executive.
I would have put you in the room.
Thank you.
But I think that the issues are probably there were other issues going on, and that's why you didn't get that.
I mean, Ruth is a fairly autocratic manager. She gets things done.
Sorry, put that in plain English. What do you mean? Well, don't get aggressive.
Just let me finish.
Tell me what you mean by
If she's given a
autocratic.
deadline, well, look in the dictionary. I haven't got time for this. If she's given a deadline, she will get it
Patronising
done.
as well.
You were sitting on the back burner, apparently. That sounds rather painful, I must say.
Yeah.
She says, to put it politely, you should have the ball as well if you put it in politely. What would you say?
But for me, that was the highlight of the 5 weeks that I was there.
You've been dying to say that.
Getting Ruth to shred chickens for a whole day. That was my highlight. Absolutely.
And you think this was her revenge?
It was, of course it was. It was personal. Yeah, I mean, otherwise Ansel would have been in there with us. It was just a personal vendetta, right?